Hello Thibault. This video is to show you quickly how to run the dislocation code that I put together. At any time, of course, if you have a question, just pitch me an email. It might be good to have a Skype next week anyways, to discuss a little bit how to use it or what to change maybe. Okay, so I'm in my MATLAB folder here, and you can see the code itself, the input GUI is in here, and then the actual code is in here, which is this location here, and there's also a little script for output, but I'm not going over this now. So I just want to first show you the GUI, because that's the one thing that really needs a bit of explaining. The rest is pretty much clear from there. So just type the name in it and enter, and this one shows up. Okay, so what you can do is now define your fault geometry, the overall shape of it. You can then define the roughness. You can define observation points if you want to use them. You can define friction parameters for the fault. This is the fact here is like, or the use for this is actually to include the effect of normal stress changes due to slip, because that will not be released as slip. So you have only in plane slip, but the normal stress change may clamp or unclamp your fault, so allowing for more or less in plane slip. So that's why you have these in here. They can also then define the boundary conditions on the fault. So let's start with the fault geometry. Here you define the geometries, the top position of the fault, strike and dip, and whether you want to use a circle. Like in the last paper I used a circle for everything. You can also use rectangles, and here are some of the features to do the gridding. Let's say we want to do a rectangle for now, and say we don't want to use this many patches. Let's say we use, roughly speaking, 50 patches along strike and 20 along a dip. This is triangulated, but this gives you only a ballpark value, what to expect. So now the length has to be changed again. Let's say make it 50 in that case. Just make it simple, and 20. So then we have patches in strike and dip direction of 1 kilometer. Okay. So next thing you do is you can triangulate that fault. Right now you can notice that this save triangles is activated. That would allow you to save the used grid. Sometimes that's helpful, because when you use very large grids, it's annoying to regrid them every time. So it's allowed to save and load them. But for now it's not necessary. So uncheck the box and do the triangulation. Okay. So here you see now the fault as it is meshed. This plot in here doesn't have labels on it, but what it shows is the leg length of these triangles, a histogram of those, how long these are. And you can see they are almost all the same size. There are some larger ones, some smaller ones, but nothing out of the ordinary, so to speak. What I mean by that is you can be, in that case, certain that your triangle shapes are all well behaved and there's no outliers in there. Okay, so now we have the geometry here, and here's the actual number of triangles that was used. Okay, let's close this. The next step is to use fault roughness. You can say that you want to use new seed values or old ones that you've used before. You'll see in a second what I mean. In here you can define the correlation function you want to use to create the roughness. You'll notice also there's an implementation of your code, and the rest basically comes from Martin Mai's code for slip distributions. I just remodeled this. So let's see, we want to use this one here. Can then enter the correlation length. This is in kilometers, so it's the same scale as this one here. So make it 5 kilometers in this case, and then some other features. You prefactor in here and variation. So let's say, okay, so now generate the fault, the roughness. You can see nothing. You can't actually see anything now. what you have to do is you have to select this button. The reason why it's not always clicked is that the code allows you, the GUI allows you to save more than one model at a time, to create and save more than one model. So this is what's in here. You can save number of models to save. And in that case, if you do more than one model, it's very annoying to have every time the screen pop up with no figures. So that's why you can uncheck it. But now for now, let's use it and then generate the fault. So this here is just a cross-sectional profile that goes through the middle here. That, just to give you a feel. Also it's nice sometimes for visualization or for plot in a figure in a presentation to give an example of how this roughness actually looks like in a cross-sectional view. So this is the roughness that was generated. You can see the amplitudes here. Same scale. So in this case it's plus 1.5 kilometers minus 2.5. It comes of course from a prefactor here. If you don't like it, for example, just want to see a new one, just generate a new one with a button. What you can see is the resolution here is quite high. That's using these values for generation of the grid. And now let's combine the two. So I want to use this roughness model with the grid you've already seen. So in that case, you combine both. That's what you see here. This is a bit ugly looking. This is the slope of the roughness, and here's the coarser representation of this model. Okay. So what's next? Now we can assign strength values to the fault. Or let's just say, let's put first the boundary condition on. It's right here. So you can use a stress boundary condition or slip boundary condition. Let's just focus on the stress now. When you select this, you have to enter your values for the stress boundary condition. You can just type them in here, or you can get them from principal components. And I usually just plot this, and there's some preset values in here, and they just say convert to tensor. So you can put all the values in. This is an MPA. Just plus that button, and you will get the actual stress tensor. Close this one again, and you see this populated. So this is basically the same boundary condition for all the different patches. What you can then use is the strength distribution as it is described in the paper. So here's the characteristics of this field and the water level. This was mentioned also. Let's say I want to have a water level of 0. So in that case, so if I plot the strength distribution, you'll see this is also again a cross-section through. It's not the prettiest view, but this is basically a strength distribution now. And as you can see, it doesn't have much of correlation. So let's say we change the correlation length in here. Just do it again. So you get a field like this, for example, where warm colors mean high strength, and dark colors, cold colors mean low strength. Okay, what's next? So still have to, if you want to use it, you still have to use the use strength variation when you actually want to do the computation with it. So I click that. Right now we use the water level cutoff of 0%. So let's say we now will use 50%. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of areas now that basically do not contribute to strength, and the other ones, the other patches that still do contribute, have to cover for this. So that's why their strength is higher compared, it's basically increased to have an average strength across the whole fault of 1. Okay, so let's say, just again, different example. Okay, that's that. So last step, I guess, is to define your observation plane if you want to use it. Here's the positions. So let's just take the one that we have and use this extra plot thing and combine. So you see everything as before, but also this extra plot here. And this shows you this cube of observation points and the fault to it, relative to it. This basically is defined in here. So you can then, for example, say the observation plane is supposed to have its center at this location, 0, 0, 0. You have, in that case, let's say we want to have 0 no extra observation planes below the our main observation plane. That doesn't matter in that case. And then let's say we want to have a distance between the points of say 500 meters, so it's 0.5 kilometers. And we want to have, oh, actually this is observation points, so I should have said maybe 200 and 200. And here I want to have then 500 meters. So this gives me then 100 kilometer by 100 kilometer large observation plane at this level. One thing I realized now is I should have, let's just see, I'll explain it now. So here's my observation plane now. Whoops. And what you can see actually is that the fault sticks out. I forgot to change it in the beginning. So here I have to put it, of course, below 0. If you want to do full space. It's not important, but if you want to do half space, that's of course relevant. So then plot again, and you'll see it's now as it should be below the surface. So you can still do, you can shift that, of course, the observation plane, make it a -1 or some other place. Okay, if you're interested in that. Okay, get the point. Good. This here is just shows you the strike and the dip values that the different patches have, just to give you again a feel of how much variation you actually see. And when you've done all this, you can save and then run the model. Another thing I didn't say yet is you can also record a single patch slip history. If you do that, you can select this and then say you want to select the history of some patch. Let's say patch 1000 blah 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 of the number we have. So if you do that and say combine again, you will notice that this patch is now highlighted, and it will save or record its behavior within that seismic cycle, not even cycle, but within the stress release. Maybe I will talk about this a bit later when we Skype. Anyways, you just save the model, let's say, that we have, and give it a name. Let's say call it test large version 2, and save. Okay, so it creates a few plots because I didn't uncheck that box. And now I'm in the same folder actually, in the ls here, so you can see it now in here. So the way to run it now is to do npi run np -4, and then define the code you want to run, which is run frick dislocation, and the name of the file without the extension, so just like that. And then it's either half space or full space. Let's do full space because it's a lot faster. And then let's say with ops, oops, or no ops. That stands for the observation plane. So if I do this now, that should be pretty quick, I guess. I still don't do it because the computer, I'm running out of juice and the video is getting too long. Otherwise, if you press button, you will get, the calculations will start, and you're basically done. Okay, so then let's Skype next week. Cheers.